4 weeks ago on this show, we told you the count of dead and missing American scientists connected to advanced nuclear and aerospace programs was 5. 3 weeks ago, it was 9. 2 weeks ago, it was 10, or 11 if you count Amy Eskridge. Last week, the FBI formally announced it was spearheading a coordinated multi-agency investigation to find connections. The House Oversight Committee gave the Pentagon, NASA, the Department of Energy, and the FBI a hard deadline of April 27th to brief Congress, or else. April 27th came and went. Tonight, we'll tell you what happened. Also this week, a physicist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory published a paper in Physical Review D proposing that a fifth force of nature may be hiding inside our own solar system, concealed by a phenomenon that makes it invisible to every instrument we've ever pointed at it. The James Webb Space Telescope and Chandra X-ray Observatory combined their data and saw inside a mysterious ancient cosmic object for what may be the first time in history. Scientists completed the largest three-dimensional map of the universe ever built, covering 11 billion years of cosmic history across 47 million galaxies. And in rural Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma, a woman named Alicia Maxey was attacked in the early morning hours of March 29th by something that left a 38-year veteran sheriff saying he had never seen injuries like this in his career. The DNA came back as a domestic dog, and that answer has raised more questions than it answered. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole. What's up, everyone? I'm Jeremy Sosha, and you're listening to Infinite Rabbit Hole, your weekly briefing on the unexplained. Tonight, I'm joined by my co-host, Jake. CJ is home with family tonight. We'll have him back next week. Before we get into everything, if you haven't listened to episode 275 yet, go back and check it out. It's a Project Jackalope audio documentary, research written and recorded by yours truly on the Exeter incident, highlighting the infamous 1965 UFO sighting over Exeter, New Hampshire, that became one of the most thoroughly investigated and documented UAP cases in American history. It dropped Thursday, April 30th, and it draws from the research in John G. Fuller's book, The Exeter Incident, Unidentified Flying Objects Over America Now. If you love UFO history, that one's worth your time. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. It genuinely helps more people find the show. You can find us on InfiniteRabbitHole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, we are so close to 1,000 subscribers. As of this moment, we are only 46 subs away. If you have been watching and you haven't subscribed yet, tonight is the night. Hit that button. Every single one matters, and we want to hit that milestone soon. 2 quick announcements. First, my book, UF Elmwood, is out now. It was released yesterday, May 4th, on Amazon. Search Jeremy Sosha, S-O-C-H-A, UF Elmwood, or click the link in the description. If you've been listening to this show and you want to support what we do, grabbing a copy is one of the best ways to do it. And second, Capcom is this upcoming Saturday, May 9th, in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, at the Radisson Hotel and Conference Center. I'll be on the UAP and CE5 discussion panel with Ian DeGraff, Zach Screed, and Dustin Schuda, hosted by Jeff Finup. Use code RabbitHole for 10% off your tickets. Jake, what's up, dude?
Bro, I look up your book on Amazon, and the second one is Jeremy Sochin. Biography.
The basketball player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Not the same person.
No?
No.
You're not a black NBA player?
I'm not.
Oh.
Nope. Sorry, man.
Okay. Let's see how it is. Well, I guess I'll return
He's much
that
more
book.
famous than I am, though.
I guess I'll return that book then. No, I'm all right, man. I had a really busy day. Spent a awful long time outside because I'm being worked into the ground at work. So I needed a day where I wasn't just sitting in front of the TV wasting my only day off. So I got outside, planted some fruit trees, dug a hole for Whitney for her tree, cut up some firewood for us to spend some nights together when am off doing some fire pit type stuff. So yeah, it was good. I'm just worn out. Took a nap and it didn't satisfy, and I woke up wiped out. So here I am, and my hair is all poofy today. So
I was gonna say, man, your hair is crazy today.
it's freshly washed, so it's all poofy and stuff.
Oh,
It's
so
got the
clean.
long bouncy curls. I'll put a beanie on here in the middle of the show and smash it down against my head.
Look at it.
I've been doing this look lately where I take Whitney's brush actually and I brush it out. So I brush all the curls out and I pull it back and I look like a filthy, dirty redneck, and I can't get enough of it. I should have gone with it and gone the full handlebars. Like I thought about it, I just shaved my beard off right in the middle and then the sides, and I had like the Paul Senior freaking handlebars going all the way down. And I looked at myself, I was like, it's not a bad look. And I sent it to Whitney. She's like, and I was like, all right, so not that then. But honestly, I should have just gone for it.
Yeah, who cares what she thinks?
Dude, I told her straight up, I'm not cutting my hair for 2 years. So we'll just see how this goes. So
I like it.
I'll be the one in the group that has the long hair. Terrible beard, but the long hair. So it'll work.
I dig it, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I showed it off last episode, but my book, this is the proof copy. So it's not for resale, as you can see on the little stamp there. And then the actual book is matte. It's not this shiny, glossy look, but that's it. Look at this. Look at this, everybody. Look at all that. That's all right. Oh, did you see a picture of Jake right there? I did.
So the only thing I'm seeing is the Kindle version.
That's all that's available for pre-order. So for anybody listening, we're actually recording this Friday, May 1st. The book comes out May 4th, which is a Monday. The episode releases on a Tuesday. So when I wrote the script, I wrote it saying that it was out yesterday. So that when people listen to this episode, they're like, oh, it's out. It wasn't necessary for you. Yeah.
Dude, I'm like so zonked out with how much I work. I don't even realize what date it is. It's crazy that we're already in May, but it is only May 1st. I know you said May 4th, but I just completely zoned out on it. I was just like, yeah, that's now. Like,
nope, not yet, man. Almost for us, but for the people listening, it's out.
This year is flying by.
Dude, it is.
It
is.
It helps that we can look forward to a disaster or a catastrophic emergency every week. So it's like, ooh, what's on the bingo card this week?
Ooh, what kind of bullshit is Jeremy going to say this week? No, we're only 8 months away from Christmas.
Yeah, that's wild. I told Whitney, it's like, I saw, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago, I saw the lawn started coming in. I actually mowed it for the first time today. It wasn't quite long enough to cut. Still got out there on the mower. I was like looking, I was seeing all the buds coming up on the trees and everything, and I was like, man, I've got this sickness. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I keep thinking about this coming deer season in the fall. Like, I got the sickness from the Midwest. I'm like, oh, nice. Weather's getting warm. Deer season's 3 months away, like 4 months away. I've got it. I've got the itis.
He has integrated into Wisconsin life.
That's right. September 13th. When's that? A few months away.
I love it, man. You ready for some quick hits, bud?
Yep. Let's go for it.
All right. Before we get into our main stories tonight, let's run through our weekly quick hits, our rapid roundup of the stories from the last 10 days that deserve your attention, even if we don't have time to go deep on them. So let's go. The House Oversight Committee's April 27th deadline has passed. The FBI, NASA, and the Department of Energy, as well as the Pentagon, were all required to provide staff-level briefings to the committee on the deaths and disappearances of at least 11 individuals connected to classified nuclear and aerospace research. Here is what the public records show. The Department of War responded before the briefings even took place, confirming there are no active national security investigations of any reported missing person who was a current or former clearance holder in special access programs. The committee said that answer left them with many unanswered questions. NASA's spokesperson posted that nothing related to NASA indicates a national security threat. The Department of Energy pointed to a Fox News interview where Secretary Chris Wright confirmed a coordinated investigation is underway. The FBI has not updated its public statement beyond Director Kash Patel's pre-deadline comment that if connections to nefarious conduct are found, arrests will be made. Trump's own week-and-a-half timeline has expired. The White House has not updated its formal statement. The investigations, well, they're real. They are ongoing, and the agencies are not talking publicly about what they found. Don't worry, we'll keep watching. Moving on. On April 25th, researchers published new findings suggesting that gravitational waves or ripples in space-time may have done something far more significant than simply echo through the early universe. In the chaotic first moments after the Big Bang, those ripples may have actively manufactured dark matter itself. The mechanism proposed is that gravitational wave production in that earliest window could have generated particles that became dark matter, the invisible substance that makes up about 27% of the universe, that we have never directly detected, that we only know exists because of its gravitational effect on everything around it. We have been searching for dark matter for decades. This week, a team of researchers suggests it may have been made by the universe's own heartbeat at the moment of its birth. Moving on. A major physics experiment published findings this week showing evidence for a strange new form of matter, a fleeting particle that gets temporarily trapped inside an atomic nucleus rather than passing through it. The exotic state is described as a particle becoming briefly bound to the nucleus in a way that has never been observed before. The researchers believe it may help reveal something, well, fundamental. How matter gets its mass. The Higgs boson, discovered in 2012, explained how particles require mass through the Higgs field. What this new exotic state may reveal is the next layer down, the mechanism inside the nucleus itself. Don't confuse the two. These are two separate pieces of the mass puzzle in two separate decades from two separate physics experiments. Both help to complete this particular picture. Moving on. A group of undergraduate students built their own dark matter detector. Not a simulation, not a model, a working physical detector assembled with limited resources and a lot of ingenuity, capable of probing one of the deepest unsolved problems in physics. They used it to set constraints on what dark matter can and cannot be, which is exactly what the large professional experiments do. Just with teams of hundreds and budgets in the hundreds of millions. The fact that the barrier to entry for dark matter detection has dropped to level of a well-motivated undergraduate team is one of the stranger developments in physics this week, and worth noting. So Jake, congressional briefings that produced no public answer, dark matter made by gravitational waves, a particle trapped inside a nucleus that might explain how matter has mass, and undergrads building dark matter detectors in their spare time. What's sticking with you before we get to the main stories?
It's going to be interesting trying to say we found dark matter when it's invisible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I heard a podcast today actually while I was doing yard work where they said that the age that we're in right now, with as great as the internet is, like honestly, like you could go and become an expert in quantum physics without ever taking a step into a college seminar because of the information that's on the internet at your
100%.
disposal, at your fingertips, through your phone or through your computer or whatever it is. Or you could get in some really dark, terrible things and spend the rest of your life in prison because the internet has all flavors for all people. But that, at this point, it's people's own fault if they are, I guess, ignorant on, like, they use different words, but to paraphrase it, it's people's own fault if they remain ignorant on certain topics, which is absolutely true. I know nothing about dark matter. And I probably will go the rest of my life without knowing anything more substantial about dark matter, besides that it's invisible and it creates its own magnetic field, or its own gravitational field rather. But interesting. I like that a group of undergraduate students built their own dark matter detector. Um, it kind of goes to show that with ingenuity and the will to do something, like there's really nothing stopping besides a tremendous amount of money, but there's really nothing stopping us from, say, like, making our own rocket that breaches through the atmosphere to, prove that the Earth is either round or flat, type stuff. We don't have to rely on NASA, and certainly that's why we have companies like SpaceX and, I think there's a couple more, but, that are doing their own rocketeering and stuff. I mean, shoot, freaking was it Jeff Bezos has his own wiener-shaped rocket, but,
Yes, he does.
but, it's just like we can literally just do it. We don't have to rely on the experts, which is basically just a company that was founded, decades ago, and they have a tremendous amount of money. But, yeah, I mean, that's cool. Um I'm not certain what they're looking for or if they'll find it, but that is cool that if they say they did it, I mean, I am not in the position to be like, that's impossible. There's no way you figured that one out because I don't even know what that entails. But yeah, we should get on it. We should make our own space program, Infinite Rabbit Hole Space. Yeah.
Yeah, then we'll definitely be called shills.
Yeah.
All right, so let me try to explain dark matter. Give me like, I don't know, 2 minutes, right?
Okay.
Imagine you're looking at a massive spinning carousel at night, right? You can see the brightly lit horses and the glowing center pole whirling around, but something's wrong. Based on how fast that carousel is spinning, the horse or the horses should be flying off into the darkness, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of like the gravitron, the the carnival
Yeah,
ride,
sure.
right, where you're sticking up against the wall,
Yeah. The
right?
tilt-a-whirl or whatever. Sure.
So the only reason that they aren't is because something you can't see, like invisible cables, perhaps, right? The pole that goes straight through the horse and the carousel. You can't see the pole, right? You can see the massive thing in the middle that's spinning around, and you can see the horses just kind of spinning around. But you can't tell that they're attached to the carousel in any way. And because it's spinning, you can or you would think that those horses would just expel off into all kinds of whatever, right? Just fly
Right.
off. That is exactly what astronomers see when they look at our universe, right? When we observe galaxies, the stars at the very edges are orbiting the center way too fast. Based on all the stuff we can see, stars, gas, planets, there isn't enough gravity to keep them tucked in, stuck there. By all accounts, galaxies should just be flying apart, but they aren't, right? We call this missing glue dark matter. It doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light, which makes it invisible to every telescope we've ever built. We can't see it, but we know it's there because we can see its gravity tugging on the things we can see. Dark matter isn't just a small part of the story either. Everything we've ever cataloged, everything, every star in every galaxy and every atom in your body makes up only about 5% of the universe. Dark matter makes up roughly 27%. The rest, that's dark energy. And we do get into that a little bit tonight, but explaining dark energy is a whole nother rabbit hole for a whole nother day. So 5%, 27%, that's 32% of all of existence that we know of is dark matter or physical matter that we see, where the rest of it is dark energy. We'll dive into that another day. I'm not going to do that right now. That's a lot.
Hmm.
So just to kind of tuck back into that real quick, we kind of talked about it, I believe, on the last episode. We talked about lensing, gravitational lensing, where it was about the galaxy that was extremely far away, but we were able to see it due to gravitational lensing from other galaxies between us and them. So gravity of dark matter actually bends the light from distant stars behind it, and it kind of gives off this magnifying glass effect in the space that it's in. And that's another way that we can kind of identify dark matter. And then if you want to look at dark matter, like what's the purpose of it, it's sort of like scaffolding for the universe, right? It's really tough to explain. Maybe scaffolding is kind of the wrong way to describe it. I just noticed my light wasn't on. Now it is.
Hold on a second.
Come on, do them Googles, boy.
Yeah, right.
Do you want me to go ahead and do briefing 1?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's a passage in the Bible that talks about the end times, and it talks about when the earth, or the entire, what we know as the universe, is destroyed, essentially. And it's in 2 Peter, and it's 3:10. And it says, "The heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up." What if the dark matter is not a thing that can be observed, and instead it's the simple fact that God is holding things together that shouldn't be held together, and then at the end, for no reason other than because we'll never be able to reach these other places and they're just there for the end, he just says, "No more," and they just blow apart. Entire universe just bam, done, because everything just gone from that
Yeah.
motion that is no longer being held in place. And this is science observing that and being like, well, something has to be holding this spinning carousel of planets and stars and everything together, but we can't observe it. And it's not until at the very end, it's just like they observe this thing and then they're like, oh, and then the universe is gone and just freaking vaporized by that amount of force of things just colliding into each other.
Yeah. I just make one thing clear for like the listeners, right? The script is very often, I would say 99.9, it's always written by me, right? There is no 0.01%. Jake doesn't write anything. CJ doesn't write anything.
I don't know how to write, so there's that.
He doesn't know how to read either.
Yeah, well,
he's gonna buy my book, but he doesn't know how to read.
I'm just gonna have it just because it has my name in it. I can pick out the symbols, and be like, oh, ooh, ooh.
What was I just talking about? Oh, so when I write things, I write it from the point of view of how I relate to things, right? And I understand things. So that's part of the reason why I surround myself with Jake, CJ, and Jeff, is because they can do the same thing from their point of views. And I like that. I like building Infinite Rabbit Hole off of that basis because it doesn't create that tunnel vision, right? I like hearing other perspectives. I like hearing that you were able to hear something that I wrote up from a scientific point of view and we're able to take it and look at it from a creationist point of view. And I like that, man. I like that. I like that people are going to be listening to this and they're going to be like, huh, well, that's my point of view. That's something that rings with me.
Oh, yeah,
right?
no, sure.
I like that.
Well,
I like that a lot.
The other side of that is that with the other thing I've heard about that, the heavens will pass away with a roar, and be like, so what's the sound that's created when an atom is split in half?
A blast.
A big old boom. And it's like, that sounds like a pretty big roar. If all of the elements pass away, everything is destroyed. That sounds like a lot of splitting atoms. So it's like, there's other things that's been, but yeah, when you were saying that, I was like, huh, that sounds like it's meant for a purpose, because eventually that system will fail. And if that system fails, or that whatever it is fails to do the job that it's doing, that has catastrophic implications. Because it's not just like a distant, far off galaxy that just doesn't mean anything. If it's 27% or 32% of the everything, then there could be one of those in the next star system that's right next to us that we just don't know, right? Because it can't be observed unless you observe the action of the things around it, right? It's like the way it sounds to me, it's like a rock in a river, but the river is muddy. You can't see the rock, but you can see what it's doing to the water around it. You can see the water vortexing around it and stuff.
That's a great analogy.
We can say once we have the ability to observe it, we go into the water, we put our hand in it, we can feel, oh, there's a rock stirring up the current. But until
Mhm.
that happens, all we can see is the reaction of the visible thing around it, the water. We just
Jake,
don't have the ability to see the rock right now and what is going on. I get it.
I think you may really, really like my deep dive tonight.
Yeah.
I do. Because you're really explaining something that I caught on to with almost every topic from this week's episode, because this week's episode is very science heavy. It really, really is. But I ground it a little bit in the deep dive, and I do the deep dive a little different this week. It's unique. I think you'll like it. You ready for
Okay.
briefing 1 so we
Yeah.
can get there faster?
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
go. It's like, oh, well, if you go to bed now, you'll be able to go to Disneyland faster. It's like, okay.
All right, let's do it. Give me that melatonin.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's get into our first briefing. 3 stories this week in our first briefing, all pointing at the same question. How much of the universe is invisible to us? And are we finally getting close to finding it? The first, the JPL, or the Jet Propulsion Laboratory physicist Slava Turishev, published in Physical Review D, proposing that a fifth force of nature may be hiding in our own solar system right now. Scientists already know the universe behaves strangely at cosmic scales. Galaxies spin too fast. Expansion accelerates. Vast structures form in ways standard physics can't explain. The go-to answers are dark matter and dark energy. But inside our solar system, none of that strangeness appears. Planetary orbits match Einstein perfectly. Spacecraft trajectories are flawless. No deviation anywhere. Scientists call this the Great Disconnect. Turishev's argument is that the force doesn't vanish locally. It hides, suppressed by a phenomenon called screening that makes it shrink to traces too faint for any instrument we've built. He's calling for a dedicated solar system mission to find those traces. We may have been walking past a hidden force of nature the entire time without instruments sensitive enough to notice. The second, NASA combined JWST, which is the James Webb Space Telescope, and the Chandra X-ray Observatory to find the first little red dot ever detected in X-rays. Little red dots are JWST's deepest mystery. Hundreds of ancient and possibly dense objects from the early universe that should emit X-rays if they're supermassive black holes, but don't. This one does. The Max Planck Institute lead researcher said, quote, "This single X-ray object may be what lets us connect all the dots. The theory, a black hole consuming its surrounding gas cloud, punching holes in it, letting X-rays escape for the first time, if correct, is the first time we've seen inside one of these objects, and a window into how the universe's first supermassive black holes were born. The third, the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, completed its 5-year mission. 47 million galaxies were mapped, 6 times more than all previous surveys combined, covering 11 billion years of cosmic history. The data is already hinting that dark energy may be weakening over time rather than holding constant. If that holds, when the full data set is processed in 2027, it requires a fundamental revision of physics. So, Jake, I know this one was quite heavy on science and astronomy. Hidden fifth force in our solar system, the first X-ray glimpse inside a cosmic object that's been baffling astronomers since JWST launch, and the largest map of the universe ever built, already hinting that dark energy is weakening all in the same week.
Well, of course, dark energy is weakening because the law of thermodynamics, it can't be constant because this all came from somewhere. Call it God, call it the Big Bang. It all started somewhere. So energy has to be dissipating over time. It can't just be a constant, right?
Look at you using big words like the law of thermodynamics.
Well, I mean, that's like the number one jab at scientists when they're like, "Oh, the Earth is, hundred
Mhm.
or the solar system or the universe is hundreds of billions of years old." It's like, not according to half-lives and thermodynamics. It's not. It's not that old. So it's like I hear this a lot, but I mean, Well, they better get onto it to figure out what it is and how to observe it, because it might be gone by the time they finally get off their couches and do something, you know?
Yeah. Well,
But also, I the curiosity would be what exactly, so we know what dark matter does, but what exactly is the purpose? Because things don't exist without a purpose unless it's your wisdom teeth or your, uh, whatever, your pancreas. But, whatever, what is the purpose and the thing that dark energy is doing that will have consequences as it weakens? Like,
so I'm not a huge fan of the term dark being used in these terms, because when people hear that, the first thing that they think is darkness, right? Black, which is true. When you look out into space, what do you see? You see black, right?
sure.
But really, what they should find a term that kind of utilizes a lack of instead of darkness. So where dark matter is a lack of matter that we can see.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily that it's dark. It's not black like the
It's
infinite
invisible,
space.
right.
Yeah, we can't see it. We can't detect it. So going into dark energy, I'll give a really brief explanation. Stop me if it doesn't make sense. I'm going to do my best to laymanize this for you guys. For decades, right, cosmologists believe that the expansion of the universe
Alright, you lost
tr-
me.
triggered by the Big Bang would eventually slow down, right? You would think an explosion, eventually everything slows down. And that would, they blamed it on the inward pull of gravity. So as matter was expelling each and every individual gravitational spot, whether it be noticeable matter that we can notice, or dark matter, or lack of matter that we can't detect, all of that would use its gravitational force and slowly slow the expansion of the universe. However, in 1990, it's in the late 1990s, observations of a distant type Ia supernovae revealed the opposite. The expansion of the universe is actually accelerating, right? Dark energy is the name given to the unknown force or property of space that is driving this acceleration outwards, right? It acts as a repulsive pressure, pushing galaxies away from one another at increasingly higher velocities. So where you would think after an explosion, eventually things would slow down, that's not what's happening. They're getting faster. So
Well, in space, there's nothing to slow them down. There's no
correct, but
it's
there's
not like
also
they're not
but there's also nothing to speed them up,
It's a fair
right?
point.
There's no thrust added to it, and even if there
Right.
was necessarily thrust, there's nothing to push off of. The reason why the compression engines of fighter jets work so well, the suck, squeeze, bang, blow method, is because when it goes out the exhaust, it pushes against the density of air and propels the jet forward. The whole propulsion thing in space is much different than that. It doesn't work exactly the same. And I'm not going to get into that because it's just another rabbit hole to go down, and it's a trap that I'm seeing right now. Although after the next thing, I might tell you what
You're
it
like
is.
creaking the door open. You're like, "Oh, I shouldn't. Ooh, it's pretty nice in there.
Ooh.
Oh, I shouldn't. I should."
So whatever this dark energy is, and again, it's not that it's black energy, it's not that it's darkness energy or that it's a shade of color.
Right.
It's literally an energy that we lack perception of. That's the real description of dark energy. We don't know what the fuck it is.
Dark
Right?
energy and dark matter, to me, sounds like some nerd Marvel stuff.
It is. So it is literally our explanation for answers or for questions we can't answer. what is holding things together? Well, the way that we understand things in a vacuum. Objects in a vacuum attract other objects in a vacuum. The bigger the object, the more dense the object, the more gravitational force. Again, this is where, I've said this many times on this show. Gravity is technically a theory, right? It's not a proven thing. Although most of our physics is based off of the realization that gravity exists, it isn't necessarily proven, right? We have a concept of gravity. We don't have a law of gravity. There is no law of gravity. So dark matter and dark energy are just our way of answering questions that we don't have answers to. Why is matter magnetized to each other? And I use the word magnetized to kind of,
Sure.
To compare with gravity. And why does when a galaxy spins so fast, it doesn't expel star systems out in every direction? Well, there must be some sort of gravitational force. We know that objects in space create a gravitational force. So there must be some matter, because matter makes up the objects in space. We call it dark matter because we can't see it. But really, it's just a lack of matter that's affecting things like matter in our best definition of physics, right? Energy is doing the exact same thing. Why is everything getting faster? We don't fucking know, right? So it's got an energy to it, but we don't know what's the energy, what's the fuel, is that even too much of a layman's way to look at it? Is there even a fuel to consider? It's pretty wild stuff. I love physics. I've loved physics for pretty much my whole life. I've been a nerd since I was a kid. And the fact that we have these questions still is amazing. And I can't wait to get into the deep dive. I really can't, man, because I think you're going to like it.
I mean,
I really
it's
do.
not that far out, because we often talk about UFOs, and UFOs seem to be like, if it was possible.
Boy, you better not have looked at that deep dive.
No, if it was possible that a UAP or UFO could exist, it would make the most sense for it to be in a saucer shape, because in that form, it looks like a big electromagnet. Like, it's a core of copper wires with a spinny section that has magnets, and it's creating its own gravitational electromagnetic field, right?
Yeah,
And then
like a Roger Sayer system.
Yeah, and then it's just probably using the Earth's magnetic or gravitational field to then move around, right? So, I mean, if we talk about stuff like that, then talking about stuff like this, really, they kind of go hand in hand in the kind of like weird science thing. They just kind of, they coexist.
Fringe science, man.
Yeah, they just coexist, though. Like, there they are, So, yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. It's a far out concept if you never think about it, or it's not something that I ever come across, but you do a good job of explaining it. And I'm, as the ambassador of the layman's, I can say that I got what you were saying. I picked up what you were putting down. Yeah.
Good. Because I didn't, like, I specifically left like definitions out of this week's episode because I didn't think I could explain it in a way that made sense. So that's good. I did it on a whim.
Like, I just looked for, could a UFO be a big magneto? Because a magneto is a portion in an engine. I don't know if I can explain this right, but it's basically, it uses the dying energy of a magnet to create energy. It's like, it's super weird, but like, even the guys that I work with that are like been A&P mechanics for years and years and years, you're like, hey, how does a magneto work? And they tried teaching me in school, but I don't know. Like,
All right, man, you ready for briefing 2?
Yep.
This one's a little different. I couldn't pass this one up because we don't get a lot of really good cryptid stories.
Okay.
And I will admit, this one's kind of reaching, right? But it's been picked up by a lot of cryptid communities. So I felt like we should touch base on it. All right. Second briefing tonight. And this one is in a lane we don't visit often enough on IRH. In the early morning hours of March 29th, 2026, a 38-year-old woman named Alicia Maxey drove out to a remote property in Blanco, Oklahoma, a rural community about 14 miles south of McAllister in Pittsburgh County. She was there, according to her family, to inquire about a farmhand job. She pulled up to the gate, got out of her vehicle, heard a deep growl, and was pounced on and knocked to the ground. She was found unconscious roughly an hour later by the homeowner, an EMT, who began life-saving measures until she could be airlifted to St. John's Hospital in Tulsa. She has since undergone multiple surgeries to treat extensive wounds to her face, arms, and legs. From her hospital bed, she told Fox 23, quote, "I'm in too much pain to say anything right now." Pittsburgh County Sheriff Frankie McClendon, 38 years in law enforcement, said publicly that in all of those years, he had never seen injuries to this extent caused by a wild animal. His office brought in Oklahoma Wildlife Services. The victim's ripped clothes was sent to the College of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Florida for DNA analysis, and on April 16th, the results came back, consistent with a domestic dog. The sheriff then swabbed 2 of the 3 dogs belonging to the property owner and sent those samples to the same lab for comparison, and those results have not been released as of tonight. Here is where the story gets complicated. The property owner told investigators that no farmhand job had ever been posted. So the reason Alicia was there has not been explained. Her sister-in-law noted that Alicia described the creature as dog-like, but was not certain it was a dog. The GoFundMe set up for the family mentions a possible gunshot heard at the scene, a detail investigators have never publicly addressed. And then there is the sheriff's own statement. 38 years, never seen injuries like this from a wild animal. That is not how a veteran law enforcement officer typically describes a domestic dog attack. The cryptid community landed on this fast. The attack spread on TikTok as a possible Dogman encounter, a large upright canine creature in the folklore of various areas of the United States. Someone claimed it happened during a full moon, but it didn't. The Dogman angle spread anyways. This show is not going to use Alicia Maxey's real trauma as a monster hook, but we are going to say plainly the comparison DNA was matched as belonging to a domestic dog. The reason she was on that property is unexplained. A possible gunshot at the scene has never been publicly addressed, and the sheriff's own description of her injuries does not fit a domestic dog attack in any straightforward way. Pittsburgh County sits in a region with confirmed mountain lion presence and decades of large unidentified animal sightings. The investigation is ongoing. This case is not yet closed. So Jake, injuries unlike anything a 38-year-old or a 38-year sheriff had ever seen, a DNA result that says domestic dog, a missing explanation for why she was even there, and comparison results that haven't come back yet. Where does this sit with you?
Have you seen Tom the dog on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or anything like that? It sounds like a case of being attacked by Tom the dog.
Can we bring up a picture of this Tom the dog?
Yeah, let me share my screen. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. This is an Instagram reel.
Oh yes, I have seen this guy. What? Look at him. I've seen him.
Yeah.
I can't hear the reel.
Oh, he said, what type of dog is Tom? Is that the skinwalker kind? And he's just like, but the owner's like, Tom, come on, boy. Tom doesn't like the doggy door. And then it just creeps in like that. That sounds like she got attacked by Tom the dog.
Tom looks like AI.
Tom might be AI. Tom might not be AI. It remains to be seen. But, definitely be interested to see what happens when the DNA results come back from the dogs on the property. Animal attacks are freaking vicious, and from what I can say is that in some circumstances, getting attacked by a wild animal is way more scary to me than being attacked by a person. Like I pulled out my concealed carry one time in the probably 10 years that I've had it, and it was because I watched a pit bull scale a 6-foot chain link fence and come running at Whitney from across the street. And I pulled her and Fred, when he was a baby, pulled her and Fred behind me, pulled out my handgun and put it right in this dog's face on my front lawn. And the owner freaked out. "Oh my gosh, don't shoot my dog." And this thing was freaking like just crazed and it scared the absolute crap out of me. I was like, I'm going to watch my wife get mauled to death in my front yard, right? Could have been any breed, but it was a pit bull. So, I mean, it is what it is. I like pit bulls though. They got big boxy heads. That being said though, animal attacks, dog attacks are crazy. I can see why, although I can see why um the uh the cryptid community would jump on this for a Dogman attack. I'm gonna say that it's less likely because of the domestic dog ruling on the DNA samples. Although if they come back and say like, yeah, it was a golden retriever, I'm gonna be like, no, that was a Dogman then. Yeah, you're just covering up at this point, right? Common farm dogs, shepherds, retrievers, and that's about it. Like, so I don't know.
So, two things. It does seem that Tom the dog is AI. That's what
I know.
Google is telling
I
me.
was just cracking a joke.
No, I know, I get it. I had to look because if it is real, it's a very unique dog.
Totally buy one.
The reason why I included this today was because it was so popular this week. Everyone was talking about it. This happened late March, not in April, right? So the reason why I included it was because the DNA results came back this week. That's what put this back into the spotlight, and people were talking about it as a Dogman encounter. I just wanted a chance to say, like, listen, guys, I get it, right? She had some pretty aggressive injuries. It's most likely a dog. Yes, she probably got attacked, didn't really quite understand where she was when it happened. It's a very upsetting story. I hope that she comes out of this okay. It does seem like she's going to be doing better soon, which is good. But if I had to say, it is probably just a dog attack. And I think the cryptid community, especially like the Facebook cryptid community and TikTok
they
cryptid
go
community,
wild.
they get a little too trigger happy with calling things cryptids. And I all I wanted to say is pump the brakes, guys. Pump the brakes on this. This poor lady got attacked by a dog. I think there's more of a mystery about why she was there. Like, I think she was there to steal John Deere or something like that, And one of the farmer's dogs got a hold of her, and it could be a coyote. It could be. I don't know what kind of wolf population they have there. If
Where
there's a
was
wolf
this?
population, this was in Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma. Now, I don't know what kind of canine population they have there. I'm sure they have Blanco, Oklahoma. I'm sure they have coyotes. Everywhere's got coyotes. Could this be a coyote? Probably not rabbit. I'm sure if it was, that would have been in the article somewhere that she was tested for rabies. I didn't see anything about that. Looks like she just kind of got caught, not really paying attention, and she pissed something off. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be attacked by a canine of any type. But yeah, they're pretty bad. I mean, I don't put a lot of weight into like a sheriff or a sheriff's deputy saying in like, oh, 38 years I've never seen this level of, trauma or
Mm-hmm.
attack or whatever it is. Because depending on the town, I mean, you got like the occasional freaking meth user, and then you got, the guy that is on his fifth DUI and things like that. And then, maybe there's, a mountain lion attack every once in a while, depending on where you're at. I mean, it's just like I've seen small family dogs, the aftermath of them attacking the toddler and literally ripping their skin off their face.
Yeah.
Like, it is absolutely horrifically violent when animals, especially family animals, but any animal just decides to just, you know, I think there's a problem in California with packs of, like, pit bulls mauling people to death, like, just, like, full-grown adults. They just come at them and then just tear them apart, you know? But it's just like, that's a thing that happens, so I don't really put a bunch of weight into being like, "Oh, this police officer says, well, I've never seen this happen." Well, I'm sure in your 38 years on the force in that town, in that community, you've never seen that before, but now you have, so you can add that to your list of like, "Oh, I know what a really bad dog attack looks like," you know?
Yeah.
S but
I
but it makes sense, it's like I'm sure they weren't saying it to be dramatic or anything. It probably was incredibly traumatizing to, roll up on something like that and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst animal attack I've ever seen."
yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? Do I really think she was there to steal a John Deere? No. Okay. This is a podcast. It's here for entertainment purposes. Jokes will be made. This is unfortunately not a joking matter, right? What I really think happened, like in my gut, and I'm not saying that this is the answer or anything, but just putting pieces together, it sounds like a mountain lion attack. It really does. I mean, if she says it was dog-like, I mean, she could have. The thing is, I don't know much about her injuries. I don't know how she was discovered. I don't know if the thing pounced on her back, on her front. I don't know. But I know mountain lions will attack from behind. They will take you to the ground and they will attack your neck. And one of the first things that they try to do is knock you unconscious by lack of oxygen. So if she doesn't realize who her attacker is, saying that it's dog like, there were some really bad injuries from what I understand, and I found 2 articles said that she had horrible injuries to her neck.
Mm, that
Almost
sounds like a
every
feline.
yeah, a lot of articles. There's a ton of articles out there on this. Specifically said damage to her legs and arms. I don't know what that is, but if you imagine a mountain lion standing on someone's back with their face in the ground, their paws are on their arms, and their feet or paws are on their thighs. Right, those nails are lethal, and they cut deep. Again, I did not see her injuries. I don't know. There's a lot of conflicting reports about where the injuries were. All I'm saying is that I did come across at least 2 articles that said that she had massive injury to her neck, massive trauma to her neck, as well as deep lacerations on her arms and legs. That's all I found. From what I understand, she did lose consciousness. That sounds like a lack of oxygen. You put the pieces together, it sounds like a feline attack to me. Is that the answer? I don't know. I just hope she recovers.
Yeah.
And I hope she can move on with her life and, and who knows? The dog, right? There was DNA extracted and found domestic dog. The dog could have attacked the mountain lion off her.
The dog could have stumbled upon her and started licking her wounds, and then they submitted a
I was
spit
gonna
sample, right? Yeah.
I was gonna say, man, that dog could have saved her life and tried to lick her wounds. Exactly. That wasn't even a part I was thinking about. But you're very much correct. I mean, I know, like, if I got a bloody knee, man, if I
My
fell and
dogs
scraped
won't
my
leave
knee,
it the heck alone. They're not
I
like,
know,
"I
right?
gotta
My
beat 'em
dogs
off
would
with a
lick it too.
stick to get them away from
Like,
me." I'm like, "I don't want your
like,
germs, bro."
get
Yeah,
you lick
right?
your asshole. Get.
Yeah, that's right. And I know everyone's gonna be like, "Well, a dog's mouth is actually cleaner." I don't care, all right? It's annoying. I don't want them making it worse by licking us into a sore, right? It's like,
Yeah,
I see what they
that's
do with
that's
their
what
own.
it that's
Yeah.
what it sounds like to me, man. And I just wanted an opportunity to say that. Like, I know a lot of people are in the cryptid community that listen to this show, but like, let's take a realistic look at it. Like, really put the puzzle pieces together and decipher what this could be. And it really looks and sounds like a feline attack to me.
That was the only thing that kept me from going on that pig hunt when I lived in Southern California because we had that Air Force base a couple hours away. but
Mhm.
it had mountain lions, and I was like, "I can't do this by myself," because I know I'm gonna bend down to tie my shoe, and I'm gonna hear this "wow" behind me, and then that's it. That's the end of me, right? It's just I'm done. This thing is gonna jump out of a tree and just maul me. I mean, I would say that, um, in most circumstances, it's rare for people to get attacked by mountain lions, but it's
It
certainly
is.
not unheard of. It's not uncommon. And that really also depends on this is in March, so springtime, almost springtime. I don't know when do mountain lions have cubs,
Mm.
kittens?
I mean, I wouldn't even go that far, Jake. Like, she was on a farm. Think of all the animals that are on that farm. That thing is probably there to get a meal.
Yeah,
It's
could be.
probably there to steal a calf. Shoot, it could have been there to steal one of the dogs. Saw her and was like, yo, bet, let's take this. Again, that was a bad joke. I apologize. I
Never mind. So I'm wrong. They have their birth pulse is between May and October, so it wouldn't have been for a defense of young sort of a situation, kittens. But I've definitely seen maybe it was last year, there was a video of a hiker that had his revolver out pointed at this dang mountain lion and it's just swiping the ground and it probably pushed him back off of this trail like 200 yards away from where its den was and all of its kittens. He didn't know that. He didn't shoot the thing, but it would just come running up at him and it was swiping the ground and it was
I've
just going
seen
absolutely
this.
nuts, right?
He was like
And
jogging or biking or
yeah,
something,
yeah, it
right?
was just on a walking trail. But it was just like, I mean, so it's obviously not, completely uncommon or unheard of. But yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds like it could be that. Like it could be a litany of different things. But yeah, if the DNA evidence comes back of the type of dog and it's like a lab or a golden retriever or like a freaking I don't know, like a livestock dog of any type, a Great Pyrenees or something like that, I'm gonna call BS because it's like the least likely dogs to attack you, you know?
It's gonna come back as Chihuahua, and I will believe it's a
I would
Chihuahua
believe that.
attack.
Chihuahuas are from hell. Yeah.
They are.
We established that a couple episodes ago. God gave the devil the ability to make one thing, and he made chihuahuas, so
You ready for the deep dive, man?
Yeah, dude.
An hour in. Not bad.
Yep.
All right, let's go deep. I want to try something a little different with tonight's deep dive. We spent the last several weeks going deep on the scientist story, the disclosure timeline, the pressure building on the Pentagon. Tonight, I want to step back from all that and spend some time on the bigger picture because I think this week's science stories are pointing at something that deserves more than a quick hit. Here's the thing that keeps striking me when I look at the full list of what came out this week. A JPL physicist says there may be a fifth force hiding in our solar system that we've never been able to detect because we haven't built the right instruments. A new exotic particle may reveal how matter acquires mass, which is a question we thought the Higgs boson answered in 2012. And it turns out the Higgs was only part of the story. Gravitational waves may have manufactured dark matter in the first moments of the universe's existence. The largest map of the universe ever built is already suggesting that dark energy, which we thought was a constant, may be changing. And astronomers have, for the first time, seen X-rays coming from a class of ancient cosmic objects that was specifically notable for not emitting X-rays. Every single one of these stories follows the same structure. We thought we understood something, we looked more carefully, and the part we didn't understand turned out to be bigger than the part we did. The pattern has been true in physics for as long as physics has existed. Newton explained gravity perfectly until Einstein showed it was something stranger. Einstein explained space-time perfectly until quantum mechanics showed the rules broke down at the smallest scales. Every generation of physicists has been confident that the current model is nearly complete. Every generation has been wrong about that in some important way. What's different right now is the speed. The James Webb Space Telescope has been operating for 3 years. and has already produced more anomalies, more violations of expected models, more objects that don't fit than any telescope in the history of mankind. The DESI instrument completed 5 years of observation, and its first headline result is that dark energy may not be what we thought. Now, I want to go somewhere with this that I think matters specifically for this show and this audience. The UAP phenomenon has been scientifically dismissed for decades, and the dismissal almost always rests on the same foundation. What witnesses describe is physically impossible. Craft moving from standstill to hypersonic speed without a sonic boom. Objects transitioning between air and water without losing velocity. Acceleration profiles that would destroy any known material and kill any biological occupant. No known propulsion system produces these effects. Therefore, the reports, well, they must be wrong, because the alternative requires physics we don't have. The argument is only as strong as the model it rests on, and this week that model has cracks in multiple places simultaneously. Consider what screening means in the context of Turishev's fifth force paper. If a force of nature can suppress itself in a dense environment, meaning hiding its own presence from instruments not designed to detect it, then we have a peer-reviewed scientific framework for how something real can be systematically invisible to our best measurements. We assumed our instruments would detect a fifth force if it existed. Turishev says that assumption was wrong. Apply that logic more broadly. How many other phenomena might be real, present, and undetectable by instruments built around assumptions that they are themselves incomplete? Consider what it means that 95% of the universe comprises of combinations of dark matter and dark energy, which interacts with ordinary matter only through gravity. It passes through walls, through planets, through us right now, constantly without leaving any trace or senses or our standard instruments can detect. We know it's there only because what it does to things we can see. If you described that property to someone without a physics background and told them it was a characteristic of an unknown phenomenon rather than of the accepted model, they would sound exactly like someone describing a paranormal experience. The universe already contains things that are functionally undetectable by human senses and most instruments. That's not fringe. That is mainstream scientific consensus. I'm not saying any of this proves UAPs are real. I'm not saying unknown physics explains contact experiences, or that what people report seeing in the sky is craft from somewhere else. What I am saying is that the specific argument used most often to dismiss UAP reports, meaning that the behavior described violates known physics, therefore it didn't happen, well, that assumes our model of physics is complete. Well, complete enough to make that call, at least. And this week, in multiple peer-reviewed papers in respected journals, the model was revised, not overturned, revised, in the direction of the universe being stranger, more layered, and more full of things we didn't know about than the previous model allowed. There is a version of scientific skepticism that says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That is a reasonable position. Yet there is another version that says, quote, claims contradicting the current model are impossible. That second version has been wrong every single time physics has advanced. Newton was wrong. Classical electromagnetism was wrong. The static universe was wrong. The standard model is, by this week's own evidence, incomplete. The honest scientific position on UAPs is not, this is impossible. The honest position is, we don't know. Those are very different statements. And this week, more than most, the distance between them is worth thinking about and digging in deeper than just pushing them off as physically impossible by means of our own current understanding of physics. Jake, a week where the physics we use to explain the universe got quietly rewritten in several directions at once, and where the strongest argument for dismissing UAP reports turned out to be built on a model that is, by this week's own evidence, still incomplete. How does that sit with you?
I had this conversation about UAPs this last week at work, and it was in regard to the missing scientists. And
Yep.
then we got into, could UFOs be real? And I brought up the patents that the US government, specifically the US Navy, has on, um, anti-gravity propulsion, right? And I was like, "Why would you ever have a patent for a thing that cannot exist based off the physics that we have to live under, the laws of physics?" It doesn't make any sense, which means that it is possible. Because if it was impossible, why waste the time, waste the money? And I was like, and keep in mind too that the US Patent Office is only responsible for the United States patents. It has nothing to do with China's patents. It has nothing to do with, the EU's patents. I was like, big companies like Coca-Cola, when they put in a trademark for their logo or their, whatever they're saying or whatever it is, um, they don't just do that for the United States. They do that for all the countries that would use their logo where they sell in. I was like, it's a big deal. So it stands to reason that if there's US patents for, anti-gravity propulsion, then there's also EU patents for anti-gravity propulsion that's held by our government, and all sorts of stuff. You wouldn't do that if the science behind it was impossible and if the means was impossible based off of physics, right? So sounds like that it is possible and maybe other, branches of science just hasn't gotten on the ball as far as, figuring that stuff out for themselves. But it is a thing that exists, right? So yeah, I mean, saying something is couldn't happen based off of a model that we have that's wrong is pretty asinine.
I totally froze for a long time. I lost internet.
You did. Okay. I saw you freeze. I didn't know if it was just the thing or me.
So I missed your whole explanation. I won't hear it until I edit.
Basically that the you're gonna have to probably edit this out, but basically that the US Patent Office is only responsible for US patents, not all the other countries in the world. So when big
Yeah.
companies like Coca-Cola trademark their logo or their saying or whatever it is, they have to do it in not just the United States, but every single country that they sell in have that could gain monetary value from forging their logo and selling a product claiming to be them. So that means that if the US government owns patents for anti-gravity propulsion here that we can look up for the US patents, that means that they're probably US government, our government holding patents in other countries where that's a possibility. And why would
Mhm.
you go through all of that time and money? It's a lot of money. Why would you go through all that time and money for something that cannot happen? The science behind it says that it can't happen. The means to get there is impossible based off of the physics that we are bound to, in the universe, right? All sorts of stuff says it's impossible. So that says to me that it is not impossible, that it is very possible, but that there's other areas of science where they haven't gotten on board with looking into that sort of stuff because they're looking at things like dark matter or dark energy. They're not looking at, anti-gravity propulsion. But it is possible, even though we would say, oh, well, that breaks our, model of physics. It's like, well, now you're basing that assumption off of a model that's wrong. So it's not impossible. You just think that it is, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, I agree that it's asinine to claim that something can't be just because, well, by basing it off of something, a model or a theory that changes on a weekly, monthly, or yearly basis, or even every 100 years. Say every 100 years, we figure out a new thing about physics that completely defunks all the assumptions of physics before it. Great. You can't then say that something's impossible just because it goes against that, current understanding. Because in another 100 years, it might come to fruition that, oh, well, that model that we're using right now is wrong.
Yes. That's
Now, that being said, I understand. I'm kind of like shooting my own foot here people could say, well, yeah, but you're basing your beliefs off of that there are no aliens, off of the idea that, it would take too long to get here and all sorts of stuff. If by my own logic, wormholes exist, people can travel, or beings can travel through those wormholes and all that sort of stuff, then yeah, I guess, right? I would be guilty of that too. Um, but yeah, I would be
I've
guilty of
s-
that too. And there's no
I've
way around that.
I've said it 100 times on this show that I don't think it could be extraterrestrial beings from another planet because literally the time it would take to get here safely would mean generations would have to pass. That is off of a mindset that physics doesn't allow it. That's exactly and that's exactly what I'm saying here. And
Yeah.
I've said also 100 times on the show, my point of view on things will change daily with new
Well,
evidence, with
yeah.
new thought
Well, that
processes, with
shows
new
that we're
conversations.
logical, right? That
Yeah.
we're not illogical. If new understanding comes out, new science, new research and development and all sorts of stuff, opinions eh, can and should change, not just stay rooted in, well, you're wrong. Because the Bible doesn't say anything about aliens from another planet. It's like, well, the Bible
Mhm.
doesn't say anything about a platypus either, but they exist,
Do they?
or Arabian horses. I don't well, there are
Oh,
horses and chariots in the Bible, but they're not specifically called out, so Clydesdales
yeah.
aren't in there, unless Pharaoh's army was using Clydesdales to pull their carts, which I doubt it because they're probably a little bit too hot, but, yeah. It's like, there's things that exist that are not rooted in, what the Bible says. And so for me, I have no problem entertaining the idea. I think CJ brought up a few episodes ago. He's like, what if, basically we're in our own terrarium and then there's other terrariums out there with their own beings and they're untouched and let's say unmolested by our failure as people to walk in concurrence with God and his plans for us. And so they don't have to have their own version of Jesus because they haven't sinned yet or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, let's theoretically throw that out there. Sure. Yeah. Could that? Yeah, I guess, it's like, am I going to live by that idea? No, but it's like, yeah, it's a fun thought process, but I'm also not in a position where my voice is going to change the opinions of, an entire country. I think that the higher you go in your field of study and your influence, you ought to be correct in your assumptions. And eliminating a whole swath of possibility because it doesn't line up with today's model of physics is just ridiculous.
Uh-huh. I agree. I agree. It I think one of the things that influence my thought process the most with things is just simply having conversations with people and hearing an argument that you've heard 1,000 times come out of 1,000 different mouths. For example, space is too vast, can't be extraterrestrials. And then you've heard a million other people saying, oh, it's got to be little green men from another planet. Science, physics says no, right? The logical brain says no. And it looks at the cryptid brain, the people who want to, attach what very well might be a mountain lion attack as a dogman,
Mm,
and they
sure.
say, no, 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 idiots, can't do that. But then you hear the one person that says, hey, but listen to it this way. And then they describe it in a way, and you're like, shit, you might be right. Everybody I just called it an idiot. They all might be right. And
Oops.
it's, I mean, has that ever happened, man, where you're like, you have this point of view and then you just hear one person explain it in a specific way and you're like, fuck, man, you might be
Yeah.
right.
I couldn't pinpoint any specific
No,
circumstance,
no,
but yeah, I'm
me
sure
neither.
that has happened for sure.
It happens all the time. In every book I read, well, not every book, because some books are just shit. Um, but in a lot of the books, so a lot of my favorite books, right? It's damn, the way they put it makes a lot of sense. And then you start applying the knowledge that you have from other aspects of things onto it. And you're like, well, shit, this holds up. this really does hold up. It holds up better than my thought process prior, which was directly against this.
Mm-hmm.
John Keel did that to me multiple times in all of his books. All of his books had some point in there where I was like, shit, this guy. I love John Keel, man. Good stuff. All right.
I think that the most recent time that that's happened to me was that I've been so anti-extraterrestrial for so long, but when someone, gosh, it might have been Kent Hovind, he does the Dr. Dino type stuff. It might have been him, but someone in the Christian atmosphere that I consume the content of said, "Well, yeah, I mean, they're interdimensional beings, like spirits, angels, demons, interdimensional beings, because they're on a different plane of existence that parallels our own, but we can't see it unless the veil is lifted and they're able to either pass through, well, not pass through the veil, but they're able to be observed on our plane of existence, but living in their plane where they see things that we can't see." And it was his way of explaining it. I was like, huh, well, yeah, that could explain aliens then. It's just like, now that's not a thing that, I could tell 100 people and 100 people would agree with me.
Absolutely not. Right.
Right? And
Right.
that's the way it is with well, everything really. But for me, it was just like, oh, well, so I guess people saying that they were, they had an alien encounter, they could have had an encounter with some sort of thing. They're calling an alien. I was wrong to just hear the buzzword and be like, no, you're a schizophrenic, type stuff. Completely dismissing large swaths of people just because I didn't have what my brain would accept as a logical explanation for what they were going through, right? And so it's like, oh, so this is a thing. We're just using two totally different terms. But if you
Exactly.
take away the terminology and just have the experience, okay, well, that makes sense, right? And so for me, I was like, oh, yeah. So would I call it a demonic attack, and someone else would call it having an encounter with a green alien or a smiling man from Lanulos? Yeah, sure, but it could be the exact same thing, just in two different ways of explaining it. But and that's a very, very small thing. I've never had an alien encounter. So it's not something that would like affect me one way or the other. But yeah, I definitely have certain circumstances where it'd be like, oh man, I've been calling people insane for a really long time, and they could have actually been dealing with some pretty horrifying. Oops, yeah.
I'm
My
proud of you,
bad.
man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I am. Because Jake, like 2-3 years ago, would not have remembered the word lanulus.
Aw.
Oh, look at you paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job, man.
I keep factoids in its own little factoid box in my brain, and I can bring out things like the law of thermodynamics and Lanulos out of them at will, but only in specific circumstances.
Oh, look at
when I remember
Jake's...
to open the box.
Jake's growing up, everybody. Look at him.
That's right.
So cute with his hair.
With his hair, his redneck mustache.
Like he's going to go make a custom chopper.
Dude, I'm no joke. I'm thinking about buying a 2015 a Harley Davidson Heritage Softail that I can turn into a Cholo bike. So I mean, it's not far off. All chromed out with a tricked out lowrider paint job on the tank and the fenders. I'm selling a motorcycle this week, and there's gonna be room in the garage for another project. So
the orange one.
What's that?
Or the gold one?
No. I'm selling the Grum.
I was gonna say, come on, man, don't do that.
No, I'm selling the Grum. I thought about selling that bike, but I've done too much welding on it with my terrible welding work to sell it. It'd fall apart on someone else, and I feel terrible.
You can't sell that. Don't do that.
I'll repaint it with something else.
You ready to get out of here, bud?
Yeah, dude. Good episode.
All right. Thanks. That's it for tonight's episode. In quick hits, the congressional briefing deadline passed on April 27th with no public update from any agency. The investigations are ongoing. Nobody is talking. Gravitational waves may have manufactured dark matter in the first moments after the Big Bang. A strange new particle trapped inside an atomic nucleus may reveal how matter acquires mass, the next layer down from what the Higgs boson started answering in 2012. And undergraduate students built a functional dark matter detector from scratch. In Briefing 1, 3 science stories that landed in the same window and all point at the same question. A JPL physicist proposing a fifth force of nature hiding in our solar system, screened from detection by its own behavior. The first X-ray signal ever detected from a little red dot. JWST's most mysterious class of objects, and the largest three-dimensional map of the universe ever built, covering 47 million galaxies across 11 billion years, already hinting that dark energy may not be the constant we thought. In Briefing 2, we covered the McAllister mystery. Alicia Maxey attacked in rural Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma on March 29th by something that left a 38-year-old sheriff saying he had never seen injuries like it. DNA came back as a domestic dog. The comparison sample from the property's dogs hasn't matched yet. The reason she was at the property still hasn't been explained, and the investigation is ongoing, and this case is not closed. And in the deep dive, we took the physics stories and followed them somewhere. The argument used most often to dismiss UAP reports rests on the assumption that our model of physics is complete, at least enough to say what is and isn't possible. This week, that model was revised in peer-reviewed journals in multiple directions at once. We talked about what it means that 95% of the universe is already functionally undetectable, that a hidden force can suppress itself from our instruments, and that the honest scientific position on the unexplained is not, quote, this is impossible, but rather it's we don't know. Those are very different statements, and this week, the distance between them matters. A couple of things before we go. My book, UF Elmwood, is out now on Amazon. It was released yesterday, May 4th. Search Jeremy Socha or UF Elmwood, or simply just click the link in the description. And if you listened to episode 275, the Project Jackalope documentary on the Exeter incident, and you want to go deeper into that case, John G. Fuller's book, The Exeter Incident, Unidentified Flying Objects Over America Now, is the foundational text. And Capcom is this Saturday, May 9th, in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, at the Radisson Hotel and Conference Center. Use code RABBITHOLE for 10% off your tickets. I'll be there on the UAP and CE5 panel with Ian DeGraff, Zach Screed, Dustin Schuda, and Jeff Finnup. Come find us. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please subscribe to Infinite Rabbit Hole wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating and review. It generally helps more people find the show. You could find us on InfiniteRabbitHole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And if you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, we are only 46 away from 1,000. Be the one that gets us there. We're back next week. The comparison DNA from Oklahoma will hopefully be in. The scientists' investigation will have developed further. And whatever comes next, we'll be there. Until next time, keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and remember the truth is out there. You just have to know where to look. I'm Jeremy Socha, and we'll see you at the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to InfiniteRabbitHole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.